Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Armchair Armdrager podcast. As always, I'm your host, Ben Hersick, and we are now officially done with a big week of wrestling. WWE just ran 4 shows in Chicago. AEW just ran a show in Chicago. AEW also announced that they will be coming to Cleveland, which is pretty big for me since I'm there. Maybe more on that later. Kind of going to leave that one under wraps, see what happens. But yeah, we had War Games and we had Survivor Series over the weekend, and we're going to talk about that today. Again, I apologize for this being a day late, excuse me. But, Thanksgiving happened on Thursday, and I just didn't have time to record. A lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff out of my power, out of my control, kind of went down. So, had to deal with that first, and then, lo and behold, now I'm able to record it on Friday night. So before we get too far, as always, with how these things usually start, the Twitter mentions. You can follow myself on Twitter at ChurroSoldier. You can follow this podcast at Podcast Armchair. You can follow All Things Combat, which is a website that covers professional wrestling, boxing, and MMA at Things Combat. We also have a merch store, and we have Christmas merch. You can go buy that at the Spreadshirt link in the description below. And I am also the sports editor over at the Cauldron at Cleveland State. You can follow us at CSU Cauldron. We have a lot going on. It's our last issue coming up this next week. I have 2 articles. One's going to be a little bit shorter, so that'll be nice. I actually have 3. I have one in another section, too. That'll be fun. But anyway, let's jump right into... Well, should we? Yeah, I think we should. I don't want to go too much in on AEW this week because I was very busy on Wednesday and I really didn't have time to watch the shows. So, starting right off with War Games. And honestly, this show felt paced pretty well. There was one weird little lull period where it was a match that I thought we could have seen a little bit better, but it was still a good match there, and it was a great show overall. First off, right off the bat, I don't really have much to talk about for the the pre-show match with Angel Garza and Isaiah Scott, because I didn't see it. I thought I'd have a little more time before it. I didn't realize it was only a half an hour pre-show compared to the hour-long pre-shows we get on the main roster usually. So I don't have any thoughts on that, which is unfortunate because I'm a big fan of both guys in that match. I'll still have to go watch it at some point. Maybe I'll do that soon. So for the first match on the show was the War Games match for the women's division, which was Team Ripley, which was Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, Tegan Nox, and Mia Yim. That's what it was supposed to be. Before the show, Mia Yim got attacked by somebody. It was revealed just a little bit later who it was. Potentially, possibly, probably. And they were up against Team Baszler, which was Shayna Baszler, Bianca Belair, Io Shirai, and Kaylee Ray. Now, with Mia Yim being attacked backstage, Dakota Kai, Tegan Nox's tag team partner, and the 5th woman in that 4-woman group there, fighting for those 3 spots in War Games because Rhea Ripley was assured one. Dakota Kai was the odd one out, but she got put into the match due to Mia Yim's injury. This match felt really, really well paced, which is kind of surprising because I thought first time ever it's going to be a bit of a cluster like some of the other first time evers. The Women's Money in the Bank, the very first one was a big cluster where you just had like all the stars do the moves and then we'll have a sneaky finish. Whereas with this one, really well paced throughout. You had Candice LeRae, who was the underdog babyface in the match, start off against Io Shirai, and those two just have something. They just click, which is really, really good. And the highlight of that bit was Shirai went from one ring. She did a springboard to the rope onto the top ropes of one ring, jumped to the next one and hit a version. I believe it was the West Coast Pop. She kind of hit more of a little homage to Rey Mysterio. So that was really cool. Bianca Belair was also pretty impressive in this match, especially with her selling, which is a weird thing. You don't hear a lot about selling nowadays in pro wrestling, especially in a War Games type match. You see it with Kyle O'Reilly all the time, but like with War Games matches, you don't usually talk about the selling point. You talk about the brutality and the offense, not like the actual selling of the move. She got slammed into a trash can by Rhea Ripley. Her 450 was amazing. She had some other moves here and there, but she was almost like a kind of a background player in this one, which is a bit unfortunate, but she looked really, really good, too. Rhea Ripley, impressive as always. There was a pit at the end where it was just before the finish where she just took a trash can at a flying Kaylee Ray and just threw it. And I thought that was hilarious. And I'm like, if we're just going to throw trash cans, let's do it. I love that. But overall, this match kind of had like three main phases. Phase one was the beginning where obviously the face team got the little beat down. Well, it had four phases, I guess, technically. Yeah, the faces would get beat down. Then one of their members would come out. And that was it. Candice LeRae and Io Shirai started off. When Bianca Belair came in, it was Candice LeRae getting beat down. Rhea Ripley came in and evened the odds. Then out came Kaylee Ray, and she did stuff. She had some pretty impressive stuff too, to be fair, from what I remember at least. And then it was going to be Dakota Kai, and this is where the second phase came in, where Dakota Kai blindsided Tegan Nox, turning heel. We all knew this was coming. We all thought it was going to be 2 weeks beforehand, though. I thought it was going to be, and a lot of wrestling Twitter, it seemed, thought it was going to be in the match for the advantage, in the ladder match with Io Shirai and Mia Yim. Not the case. They waited until the show to do it, which was very, very impressive and very, very interesting. So, that took out Dakota Kai, because, obviously, and that also took out Tegan Nox. At this point, I'm thinking, well, there could still be like a run-in to help, because technically Team Ripley's down just to two people. They're like, no, we're just going to run with it. And I was like, okay, cool. And then we got to more of the beatdown phase, and then we got to like the intense moment in matches where, in big matches like this, where you just see a lot of finishers, a lot of signatures, a lot of big moves. You had Kaylee Ray at one point went for a gory bomb. She missed that. Belair did something to help with a different move, though, I believe, if I remember right. This is almost like a week after the show, so I'm trying to remember everything from there. Candice LeRae hit a huge top rope Poison Rana, which you don't often see. Io Shirai hit her Acai moonsault up the top of the cage. And then... who was it? Shayna Baszler locked in the Kirifuda clutch on Rhea Ripley, and it looked like this might be it, and Ripley might just pass out, which would have protected her, I think. That would have really protected her. But Ripley was almost handcuffed to herself during the match, or to the bottom rope. I don't exactly know what Baszler's plan was with that, since it never happened. But Ripley kept the handcuffed herself to Shayna Baszler, and hit the riptide through steel chairs set up to like be opened. Hit the riptide through that, and got the win. She pinned Shayna Baszler, which kind of surprised me. I thought it was going to be Bianca Belair taking the fall, because of the 8 women in the match going in, she had the least to lose. But no, they went with Ripley, or they went with Baszler, which was kind of a surprise. This match was a really great start. I thought, how could they follow this? They did with another really good match, which we'll get to in a minute. But also, it's interesting to see, where are we going to go in the future? How is this Tegan Nox and Mia Yim versus Dakota Kai feud going to go? Where does Io Shirai go from here? Io Shirai, both nights, got a huge, huge pop from the Chicago crowd. That was maybe my biggest takeaway from this weekend. The NXT fans and the Chicago fans and the pro wrestling fans that travel to these big four shows love Io Shirai. Now, what's interesting is the future implications for the NXT Women's Championship. I'll get into a little crackpot theory I have at the end, because it does deal with the women's triple threat at Survivor Series. There's a lot I want to talk about with that, so I want to keep a lot of this pretty short. But it does seem like we're going to get Rhea Ripley versus Shayna Baszler at some point here in the near future. Possibly for the next TakeOver in Portland, is my best guess that they announced on the show. So we'll see how that goes. I'm excited because I've been high on Rhea Ripley since I saw her in the first Mae Young Classic. She had a great showing in the second. First ever NXT UK champion for a reason. They saw something in her. And now the rest of the wrestling world is getting to see it. Speaking with NXT UK, the next match was the number one contendership for the NXT Championship at Survivor Series Triple Threat, featuring the longest reigning NXT UK champion in Pete Dunne, Damian Priest, and Killian Dane. I thought it was going to be very hard to follow the Women's War Games match. This did it really well. To have those four guys go out there and do all that they did was amazing. This was maybe the most overlooked match on the card, I want to say, because of the fact that there was just so much with the other three matches on the main show. That being said, all three came out and played their part. Nobody was overly dominant, which was really nice to see, and a good change of pace. You had two big men in there with a smaller man in Pete Dunne. You would think the two big guys would just do a lot of the heavy lifting. No, they let Pete Dunne do a lot in that match, which is very, very fine by me, because you got to see what Pete Dunne is actually all about. That bruiserweight style that he takes into the matches, which is very, very interesting. So, what were some highlights in this match? Damian Priest hit a Razor's Edge on Killian Dane. Priest did the outside dive to Killian Dane. Dane's Samoan drop follow-away slam combo is always a thing of beauty. And he hit that on the outside. Dunne broke fingers and looked amazing. I'm curious to see where all three men go, because you can only push so many guys. So how do all three guys look coming out of this? And two of them looked good. One of them looked great. Priest's momentum kind of got killed the next night, but still. This is maybe the most interesting match when we look at it maybe a year or two from now. Where are these guys going to be in a year or two? Do we see Pete Dunne as maybe a main roster champion? Is Damian Priest an NXT champion? Is Killian Dane in title conversations? We'll see. But overall, Pete Dunne winning actually was the right call. It was the obvious call, and it was one I think most of the wrestling world kind of figured. But the match itself was good. It was really, really good. And you got to see a lot of strengths for everybody, which was very, very rare to see in a WWE show. And to be fair, it's NXT, so you see it a lot more often. Then there was Finn Balor versus Matt Riddle. This was the match I felt like kind of could have been better. It was missing a little something for me, and I don't know exactly what that was. It was a little slow in the beginning. Maybe that's what it was. NXT matches are usually high-paced, high-octane. And this new heel Finn Balor is going to want to slow all of that down, which I am very, very interested to see how that works with the NXT crowds. Excuse me. It's not late either. I don't know why I'm so tired. I even took a nap when I got home from work today. But no, it seems like this new Balor is going to want to slow everything down, which is very, very interesting, because NXT has been known to be this high-octane, fast-paced brand where you see a lot of move after move after move after move. A great example of that, Matt Riddle and Cameron Grimes, when they faced off in NXT. Oh, God. That's quite a few weeks ago at this point. But those guys just went move for move for move for move for move for move. They just had sequences that were like 6-7 moves long. The longest sequence maybe in this match was like 4 or 5. So it's like a weird change of pace from what we're used to. It did pick up towards the end, and Riddle looked impressive, hitting a spear and a jackhammer, and Balor kicking out at 2, which I think might have been more of a more favorite point of mine. Than Balor actually kicking out at 2. And Balor kicking out at 2 was more impressive than Riddle hitting the spear and the jackhammer, because of the fact that you kind of figured that's going to become a thing now with how much traction this has gotten on social media with him and Goldberg, excuse me. And honestly, a lot of this takeover kind of felt predictable. The War Games were the most unpredictable ones because you didn't really know. So, going into this, you knew a few of them. You already knew what a few of the bookings were going to be. So, now that you know stuff like this, why is it that we're still excited for it? Because it's NXT, and NXT is so good at booking matches. Even though if we know the outcome, we're still curious to see how do we get from the beginning to the end. It's going to be interesting to see. I'm still holding the theory that it's going to be Balor, Cole, Ciampa at some point for the NXT title. I don't know if that's going to be TakeOver Tampa Bay. I don't know if it's going to be TakeOver Portland. It's going to be one of those two, and I'm curious to see which. That being said, as I'm trying to move through this as fast as possible, there's a lot I want to talk about with Survivor Series. The men's War Game match, my God. You had Team Ciampa, which was Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee, Dominik Dijakovic, and a mystery partner, not revealed until the 12th hour, against the Undisputed Era, Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong. This was fun. This was fast-paced. I was very, very happy to see it. You start off the match even. You don't even start off the match. You hit Tommaso Ciampa's music, and you don't get the Goldie, the Daddy's Home Tommaso Ciampa. You get the Sicilian psychopath, the psycho killer Tommaso Ciampa. When you get that Ciampa, you know you're in for a long night. And I'm very excited. I'm hoping they let him do the psycho killer gimmick. Maybe they deem it the Sicilian psychopath because you don't want psycho killer on a PG television show whenever he does get called over. Excuse me. So that'll be interesting to watch. But him and Strong had a good first 5 minutes. You had in Kyle O'Reilly, which was a lot of fun. Kyle O'Reilly is just like a great overall guy. I'm really curious. Excuse me, Jesus, burping. I'm very curious to see with Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, to that matter, will they ever get singles runs in any way, shape, or form? Because both guys are super talented, and they could easily be good mid-carders with the potential to be main eventers. Fish is getting up there in age, yes. So is O'Reilly, to be fair, but both of them are really damn good still. So we'll see about that. But overall, the match itself had a lot of high points. All the tables being brought in, because earlier in the night the crowd was chanting, "We want tables" during the women's War Games match, and they were like, "No." And as soon as Rhea Ripley said no, like, you don't need those, or whatever it was she said at that point, you knew the men's were gonna go crazy with them. We got down to the last entrant for Team Ciampa. And everyone was like, who could it be? There was speculation running wild. My pick was already gone because he wrestled in the pre-show. Kevin Owens. And I thought this would play a bit of a bigger factor into the men's elimination match. It ended up not, but I thought it would have. But Kevin Owens answered the call because Undisputed Era had attacked him the week before. So it made sense in the storyline sense too. Now, at this point, the match actually started picking up a lot more because now, like they always say, War Games officially begins when everybody's in the cage. This is where you started to see a lot of high spots. There's a Panama Sunrise from Cole to Owens on the metal part between the rings. Fish and O'Reilly hit a couple tag team moves. Roderick Strong with the Olympic Slam on Keith Lee off the top rope. And then you also saw the big moves from the babyfaces. You saw Tommaso Ciampa start kneeing everybody's head off. You saw Dominic Dijakovic setting up somebody for a frog splash from Kevin Owens, through a table. I believe it was Roderick Strong. Fish got taken out somehow. Kyle O'Reilly got spirit bombed through a table. And then the big moment of the night, Tommaso Ciampa's air raid crash from the top of the War Game structure through 2 tables to win the match. It annoyed me the next night when Cole called it that move, but it was something where you just sit there and you're like, what the hell did I just see? We're used to seeing people take bumps off the War Games cage. Cole's done it twice now. He had the super duper plex off the top of the cage with Roderick Strong in the first one. He was in the pile when Ricochet hit the double moonsault in the second one. And now he's been with the air raid crash through 2 tables in the third one. Adam Cole's just got a notorious history of being in the wrong place at the wrong time in these War Games matches. You better hope he gets called up soon, because he probably does not want to go through another one. That was Tommaso Ciampa's... Oh, I did the math the other day. What was it? That was his 4th match back from neck fusion. Neck fusion. I can never say it right the first time. From neck fusion surgery. That's his 4th match back. And he's doing a move like that off the top of a steel cage. This man is going to be something. He had better get called up. I hate them. It's still called a call up because I have a thing I want to write about and I can't say it yet because it's not January 1st yet. But no, like, you have stuff like that where you see it and you're just like, that's a star-making moment right there. You saw another one this weekend too. But that moment you can see Tommaso Ciampa is going to be something in WWE. Now, overall, I'm surprised how long the show went. I thought it would have been a little shorter looking at the times. But overall, you had really good moments for everybody. You had stars that had been made the weeks before in Rhea Ripley and Adam Cole. And they ended up still being stars going out of the show, win, lose, or draw. And then you had that moment from Tommaso Ciampa where it's like, even if you're not a pro wrestling fan, you see that moment, you're like, that guy is going to be a big deal. That's how big this was. Now, what does this mean for TakeOver Portland? I'm very curious to see. I feel like we're getting Baszler versus Ripley. Maybe we see Adam Cole Ciampa. Maybe we see Adam Cole Balor. How does Gargano play into this if he's healthy? Where does Velveteen Dream come in? What do Roddy Strong and the Fish and O'Reilly do? What do we see? Where do they go? What is next? And I'm very excited to follow that journey and see who exactly emerges from the pack of wrestlers that NXT has to be like, we want next. Maybe the Worlds Collide one. It's probably going to be that. The Worlds Collide winner is probably going to face Roddy Strong. For the men, at least. For the women, I would say go NXT UK for that. Because that's actually the next show we're going to get from the NXT brand. NXT UK, and 205 Live are all going to be involved. So, yeah, for the men's winner, have them go on to face the North American champion, whoever that is at that point. And then have, for the women, they go on to face the NXT UK champion, whoever that is at that point. NXT UK women's champion, excuse me. So that was War Games, another fun show. Winter TakeOver is not fun. So now, let's see how Survivor Series followed up. Now, to me, Survivor Series was good, I thought. Survivor Series was a good show. But I want to talk about this. After the pre-show, let's see, the first match, the women's 5-on-5 was good. The mid-card triple threat match was great. Cole versus Dunn was great. Fiend versus Bryan was good. And the men's 5 was good. After that, it tapered off for me. The first 5 matches of the show, spot on. The last 2, we'll talk about that when we get there. So, let's start with the pre-show. We started with a 10-team interbrand Tag Team Battle Royal. That is the official thing it says on Wikipedia. It felt like this match, everyone was just told, just go out there and wrestle like a normal Battle Royal. It's a normal thing. It's not about brand supremacy. You didn't see Raw guys teaming up with Raw guys. You didn't see NXT guys teaming up with NXT guys. You didn't see SmackDown teaming up with SmackDown. If anything, you saw more inter-brand warfare. You saw SmackDown guys going after SmackDown guys. Gallows and Anderson were consistently after the Street Profits. It was stuff like that made this match kind of like annoying to me. In the end, it came down to Rude and Ziggler and Street Profits. And to be fair, Montez Ford is just a highlight reel waiting to happen. He hit, not a normal frog splash, a 180 frog splash. So that was something that I think nobody had really ever seen before. I can't remember the last time I saw that. Maybe RVD did something like that before I was born. I don't know. But that was something that kind of caught my attention. I'm like, Montez Ford, if they ever break up the Street Profits, I don't want them to. But if they ever do, there's your star. That man will be the star. He can go on to be a mid-card guy. Who knows? Maybe he seems like the right kind of caliber guy to win Money in the Bank and use it correctly. It can help elevate him to that next level. But as the Street Profits as a whole, with that Raw Tag Team division in the shape that it is, they might be the right guys to eventually knock off the Viking Raiders. But also, after that 180 Frog Splash, on Dolph Ziggler, I believe it was, Robert Roode threw out Ford and won the match for Team SmackDown. And I will say this, I feel like I'm the only fan in the world of Roode and Ziggler. Were they a thrown together team? Absolutely. But they've made it work. They have been interesting. They're doing everything they can with what they're given. And I am very, very impressed by that. They are people who... They're two guys who can take something like this, work on it, and make it better. And as a tag team in such a bad division it is in the WWE, this is a team that can help. Two experienced guys, two experienced tag team guys, Ziggler with the Spirit Squad and Rude with Beer Money and Team Canada in TNA. These two guys can help elevate the tag team division and make it even better. Are they gonna do that? Is that WWE's plan? I don't know. Vince, Hunter, somebody give me a call and help me figure this stuff out, please. I would appreciate it. Next on the pre-show, there was the Cruiserweight Triple Threat with Lio Rush representing NXT, Akira Tozawa representing Raw, and Kalisto representing SmackDown. I said last week, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some kind of match featuring the Cruiserweights. Because now all three shows kind of have a little Cruiserweight division. And all three guys looked really good here. I said this about Tozawa. I don't know if it's mean or not. He's a great he's a good wrestler. He's good. There's just nothing that he does that makes him stand out. He does nothing different. It's always the same. There's like, I think the thing is there's no character to get invested into. There's nothing there to really like sink your teeth into with him. Which I really want to see because I want to care about Akira Tozawa, but right now I don't care about Akira Tozawa. And that's a problem. Kalisto is Kalisto. He's going to do lucha things and anyone who remembers that callback, my God. That's a guy who's another really solid wrestler, but with how SmackDown's set up, he doesn't really seem like he's going to ever advance like super high on the card. Now, Lucha House Party was a really high draft pick. Maybe he gets into the Intercontinental title scene, and Lucha House Party gets involved in the SmackDown tag title scene with Lince Dorado and Grand Metalik. I still say Lince Dorado could go back to NXT, or even go to NXT, because he's great, don't get me wrong. I think of the three, I think Lince Dorado is probably my favorite. But I think he could work better in the NXT environment, simply because of the fact that his style works there a lot better than Grand Metalik's or Kalisto's. Lince Dorado, you can see he wants to go high octane, he wants to go fast paced, but with where he's in right now in the situations with SmackDown, it doesn't really work that well for him. Could he go to NXT at some point? Maybe. Who knows? I don't know how the draft's going to look next year. But obviously, again, it was a Cruiserweight Championship match, too. The NXT Cruiserweight Championship is staying on NXT, so that kind of felt obvious that Lio Rush was going to win. And that kind of made it obvious who was going to win the third pre-show match. I'm still a little annoyed this was on the pre-show. I would have loved to have seen this bleed into the main show. I keep calling it the regular show. But I would love to have seen this bleed into the main show. The Viking Raiders versus New Day versus Undisputed Era. Even when New Day won the titles from the Revival, I thought this was still going to be a good match. It was still a really good match. Those are just three teams that understand tag team wrestling. And obviously, coming off of War Games, there was somebody who's going to look a little bit weaker. It was going to be the Undisputed Era. But I think they still look really good. I think they looked really, really good here. This is going to be a team to watch in the future. But also, New Day showed they can still go as a team. Some people have had questions about them recently. And the Viking Raiders are just phenomenal. I'm very excited to see the future of Eric and Ivar. Because of the fact that there's no team really like them on Raw. Gallows and Anderson kind of make the same comparison, but I don't know which one's the smaller one. Who's the smaller one in Viking Raiders? I know his old name was Hansen. Hansen's also a power guy. Carl Anderson's more of a speed guy. You don't have two powerhouses on any team on Raw, which is why I kind of thought Heavy Machinery would have made sense to move him over, but it wouldn't make sense for Heavy Machinery to beat Viking Raiders because Viking Raiders has so much more experience than Heavy Machinery. Unless Heavy Machinery were healed, then it would make sense. This is why I hate my brain sometimes. I'm starting to get a headache. But no, it kind of felt obvious that Viking Raiders were going to win this one regardless to me. And I think, honestly, the right call, you go in on a level playing field with everybody. So, now you get to the main show. And this is where some people have had problems with this, and I want to talk about it. It was the women's 5-on-5-on-5. It was Team Raw, represented by Charlotte Flair, Natalya, Asuka, Kairi Sane, and Sarah Logan. There's Team SmackDown with Sasha Banks, Carmella, Dana Brooke, Lacey Evans, and Nikki Cross. And Team NXT with Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Candice LeRae, Io Shirai, and Toni Storm. Now, somebody pointed this out. 4 of the 5 people were in the War Games match the night before, with Ripley and LeRae on one team, and Shirai and Belair on the other. Why are they now all of a sudden friends? I want to point this out, and this is why NXT won. NXT cares more about its brand. And this is from a pure storyline standpoint. This isn't from, accurate information based on real stuff. No, this is just from a pure storyline standpoint. NXT cares more about its brand. They were like, yes, we were in war last night, but we have this bond because we are NXT. Raw, you had side plots going on the women's side, so they weren't going to win. SmackDown, you had side plots on the men's side, so you didn't think they were going to win. More on that in a bit. But with NXT, they're a unit. It doesn't matter if they're good guys, bad guys. They care about the black and gold brand more than anything. That's why it made sense for Ripley and LeRae to team with Belair and Shirai the next night. And this match helped make both Belair and Rhea Ripley look really strong. Like I said, Belair was an afterthought kind of in the War Games match because she didn't really have too many big outstanding moments. She had the 450, that was really about it, and eating that trash can. But this was where she looked good. She got the first 2 eliminations of Nikki Cross and Sarah Logan. It was Sarah Logan because Carmella was eliminated via shenanigans, I believe, if I remember right. No, I think it was a straight up elimination. It was natural selection, that's what it was. Okay, that's what it was. But yeah, Belair got the first 2 eliminations, so this was kind of a good move for her, so that way she could be reassert her dominance. Tony Storm had a decent showing, didn't do as much as I would have liked. And this is where NXT's strategy came into play. They got down to 1 really quickly. Well, they went from 5 on 5 on 5 to 5 on 5 on 3 because LeRae and Shirai were helped to the back with quote-unquote injuries. The two that probably did the most in the War Games match go to the back. Makes sense. And then elimination started happening, and then it was down to 3 on 3 on 3, and then it was 3 on 2 on 2, and then 2 on 2 on 2. No, it was 1 on 2 on 3, and then 1 on 1 on 2, and then 1 and 1 on 1. And then 1 on 1 because Sasha Banks eliminated Natalya. Trying to remember all the math in my head. But you had to remember, Shirai and LeRae had never been eliminated. They were never ruled out of the match. And that played into the ending. Just when it looked like Sasha Banks had it figured out and she was going to beat Rhea Ripley, LeRae and Shirai come running out. LeRae distracts the referee. Shirai hits a West Coast pop, I believe. No, she hit her dropkick. That's what it was. She hit her dropkick. And Ripley hit the Riptide for the win. And that's what NXT was about the whole night. They were about being loyal to NXT. They weren't going to be the... This is an analogy you hear a lot in football. Don't be the one that costs your team the win. None of them were going to be the ones that costed their team. They're like, we're a unit. We need to work together. And that's what they went and did. And this was a really good choice for an opener. Rhea Ripley had maybe the best week of any professional wrestler. Next to Adam Cole, the first week in November. Or October, even. Whenever this whole invasion of SmackDown, Saudi Arabia plane incident started. That was November 1st. Right? Yeah, because the show was October 30th. It was November 1st was the NXT invasion. That's what it was. See, I remember stuff. So NXT now had a 2-1 lead. And going into the mid-card match, you thought, okay, this is where Raw or SmackDown kind of comes back. No, because Roddy Strong came out of nowhere and stole the victory after AJ hit the phenomenal forearm. So, let's talk about it. All 3 men go into this match. 2 of them look like an obvious choice for a winner, either Roddy Strong or AJ Styles. Shinsuke Nakamura seems like the guy to take the pinfall. Yes, he had a new title, but so what? Now you look at it, all 3 men came out of this match looking a lot stronger than they went in. Roddy for picking up the win, AJ causing the win to happen, Shinsuke for everything in between. Shinsuke was the glue in this match. He held everything together. Which is really weird because you look at this match, he's the one you forget about the most. You see AJ Styles week in and week out on Raw. You've seen Roddy Strong for weeks on NXT. You haven't seen Shinsuke on SmackDown in what felt like a month before the show, just before Survivor Series. And he just got a new title. So then at one point, Shinsuke hit a Kinshasa, I believe, and I was like, they're really going to give the win to Shinsuke. Like, that's the time, when I'm a fan, when we're fans like how a lot of us are, where we know a lot about the business already, we're going to be kind of like we know what's going to happen. But when you get a swerve like that, it's like, wait, no, they just swerved everybody. That's the kind of things I like to watch in pro wrestling. They eventually didn't, and Roddy Strong swooped in and took the win. But that was kind of surprising. I thought that it would have made a little more sense for AJ to win. Especially because he lost the match the next night for his U.S. title. I thought it would make more sense for him to win. It looked more dominant as a champ, so that way it would have made more sense for the person that beat him to knock off a dominant champ and be like the next great U.S. champion. Possibly as a gimmick, maybe. Who knows? But this was another solid match that you saw a lot of Survivor Series. You saw really solid matches. There was nothing exceptionally great about a lot of them. But there was still matches where you saw the potential that a lot of these stars have. So, now you look at it, there's there's stuff that these guys can build off of. There's stuff that they can, go to and work with, which is going to be really interesting to see. Like now, after NXT's win, where do they go next? What's next for a lot of these guys? They lost the matches at Survivor Series. Where do they go now? We then got a little break from the brand warfare. We got Adam Cole versus Pete Dunne for the NXT championship. Pete Dunne put a thing on Twitter the night before. Adam Cole's dead. I win by default. I was like, you know what? Pete Dunne's NXT champion. Not going to complain. But this match, for as little time as it got 14 minutes. That's not even a little time. That's a decent amount of time. But for the time it got, it was really good. You saw solid wrestling. You saw brutal submissions from Pete Dunne. You saw tactical stuff from Adam Cole. And you felt like these two weren't going to go hell for leather. Especially after the night beforehand, where both went through 20-plus minute matches. So, it kind of felt like a little toned down. Not that they really complained. I was totally fine with it. But if you're going to nitpick, that's like a little thing. It kind of felt a little toned down from what we could have gotten. Like, give these guys both full strength on, like, a week rest. We could see another 20-minute match. Easily. It's not really much to talk about with this one. It was just really solid. Now, The Fiend versus Daniel Bryan, there was some interesting stuff here, too. You saw that The Fiend isn't unbeatable. And it's an interesting story they kind of told. Like, Bryan kind of had an idea of how to beat The Fiend. The Fiend, you can't outpower The Fiend. You can't out-weird The Fiend. You can't kill The Fiend. What if you out-wrestle The Fiend? If you out-wrestle him and you get a smart little roll-up or a smart little, smart little roll-up, maybe a little heel tactics with foot on the rope, maybe, you could possibly beat The Fiend. And if that's going to be the story we tell, that'll be interesting to see who's actually going to be the person to beat The Fiend. Also, as long as The Fiend is Universal Champion, how much do you want to bet every Money in the Bank cash-in is going to be on the WWE Championship? But this kind of set in motion an interesting story. The Fiend has a thing about changing people. He changed Finn Balor. Finn Balor is now more aggressive and now is a heel in NXT. Seth Rollins is on a slow burn to be the patriarch of WWE, the flag bearer who talks too much for his own good, essentially. Now, Daniel Bryan, he started as a heel in this feud, but we think it looks like he might be trending more towards the face and back to the yes movement. I'm curious if the story is going to be The Fiend is changing people for the better. Is that going to be the story we go with here? Or is that going to be reading a little too deep into it? Who really knows? But again, another solid match. These two work well together. I think we're going to see this go a little longer. I think TLC, we see this end at. And I think I'll make a surprise prediction. Royal Rumble, no Fiend. Fiend gets the night off. Or you set up the WrestleMania feud for the Fiend. Because I could see whoever wins the men's Rumble challenging Lesnar. Depending on who it is, to be fair. And then, now we go back to brand warfare. We had Team SmackDown, Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, King Corbin, Mustafa Ali, and Chad Gable, not Shorty G, Chad Gable, against Team Raw of Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, and Ricochet, and Team NXT, who we found out on the pre-show was Tommaso Ciampa, Damian Priest, Matt Riddle, Keith Lee, and NXT UK champion Walter. Why the hell was Walter eliminated 2 minutes into the match? He was the most over guy all night for about 20 minutes. Why the hell was he eliminated first? But overall, this was a very, very cleverly done Survivor Series men's elimination match. Is it maybe the best one in recent history? I personally think it's up there. You had smart eliminations of Braun Strowman and Drew McIntyre. Randy Orton had a smart one. Ricochet, I don't even remember how he got eliminated, to be fair. But there was also the weird ones with Kevin Owens. The weirdest one to me was Kevin Owens. Because you could have built up the whole Rollins and Owens angle all match. And then maybe that's where Rollins turns heel and attacks Owens. Just so that way he can pin Ciampa. Maybe that's what it should have been. Who knows? But to have Kevin Owens eliminate Chad Gable and then get immediately eliminated by Tommaso Ciampa. Again, yes, it's a nice storytelling of NXT being loyal to NXT, but Ciampa needed a fourth, and Kevin Owens made sense because he was attacked by Undisputed Era, so he was the fourth. But it's like the Raw storytelling has been kind of meh. This past week's Raw was a lot better with it. So we'll see how this goes. But I would have liked if Owens and Rollins had been the final two instead of Rollins-McIntyre. And then have it be the story of Rollins turning on Owens just to pin Ciampa. And maybe we see a story somehow from there. All right, we got down to the final three. Two were expected. Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. Nobody expected Keith Lee. And Keith Lee was the most over guy for the rest of this match. You heard the fans chanting, "Oh, bask in his glory," for a good 3-minute span. And Lee got rolling. Roman somehow got thrown to the outside. Rollins looked like he was setting up for the stomp. Lee hit what looked like a jackhammer, maybe, to pin and eliminate Rollins, thus ending Raw's night. Raw at that point was out mathematically. There was no way they could catch up. And it was down to two, Roman Reigns and Keith Lee. As soon as Rollins and Reigns were beating down Keith Lee, I was like, if this is how WWE plans on getting Rollins and Reigns over, it's not going to work. Now, this is how it's going to work. Rollins is going to go crazy because he lost to a guy in quote-unquote developmental. And Roman, with his performance in the last bit of the match, that's how they're going to get over. Roman and Lee going hell for leather. And I will say this, I never defend a Roman Reigns in a Roman Reigns match. I never defend him. He got cheated on the Superman punch. That was a 3 count. You heard the ref's hand hit the mat on that 3. But I digress. We still got a good finishing sequence. Roman looked like he was going for the spear. Lee caught him and hit the highest angled spirit bomb I have ever seen for a 2 count. And then spear, Reigns wins, SmackDown wins. SmackDown is still mathematically alive. This kind of was the main event. And I'll explain that in a second. But this match right here made Keith Lee a star. I'm curious how this is going to play into NXT going forward. Here's why. Say Finn Balor is the one to take the title from Adam Cole. Right now, I think that's the direction we're heading. Johnny Gargano's not going to be the person to take it off of Finn Balor. By no stretch of the imagination. That's not going to happen. But who takes it off of Balor? And this is my wrestling brain at work. I like to book 2-3 steps ahead. So, let's say it's Keith Lee. How do we get from Keith Lee being a one-night star from Survivor Series to NXT champion? If that's the direction NXT is going, I'm going to be very curious to see how we get to the final destination. Now, here's what I mean why this should have been the main event. And this was the main event. Afterwards, the crowd was dead. There were still 2 pretty good matches. The crowd just had everything taken out. That was almost a half an hour war for one team point. That was the main event. That's what should have gone on last. I'll explain more about the stuff with the women's in a minute here, because there is still the Brock Lesnar Rey Mysterio match to get through. It's going to be short. Dominant Lesnar start off, suplexes, moves, suplexes, more suplexes. Dominic comes out with a towel. Lesnar just grabs it and throws it. Technically, Lesnar threw in the towel. Rey should have won right there. I know Brock threw it out of the ring, but still. It's a joke. And then, Rey Mysterio and Dominic both hit low blows on Brock Lesnar. Rey went to the Seth Rollins school of low blows, where it wasn't a full uppercut, it was just like a jab type. Whereas Dominic went to the Shinsuke Nakamura school of low blows and had a full-blown uppercut. And then we started to see some tandem work from father and son. The dual 619s, followed by back-to-back frog splashes. I'm curious to see how good Dominic is in a ring. Get Dominic to NXT. Let's see what this kid can do. I want to see a full-length Dominic match. Give him Shane Thorne. I don't care. Give him Shane Thorne. Shane Thorne's doing nothing. Have him in a match with Shane Thorne. Let's see how that goes. But it was all for naught because Brock Lesnar won, as most of us expected. But this actually kind of helped Rey, because the next night he won the U.S. title, and it seems like, I'm curious to see how this Rey Mysterio feud is going to go. What I want to see at WrestleMania, it's going to be one of two people in the match with Rey. Because I think Rey is going to hold the title to Mania. It's either going to be Humberto Carrillo, because he never got his challenge, or it's going to be Andrade. Either way, I want Rey to lose and kind of be like a passing of the torch for the Latin demographic, essentially. And then you can start to build Rey and Dominic as a tag team. And let's go from there and see what happens there. But now, the main event. NXT Women's Champion Shayna Baszler, Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch, SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley. This was good. It was good. The crowd sucked the life out of the arena. This was not on the three women in the ring. They put on a pretty good match, to be fair. If you go back and watch it and turn off the sound, this is a good match. What's important to take away, at this point Raw was out of it, and you felt like it would kind of be dumb to end on a tie, but with SmackDown getting the Fox deal for $1 billion, or whatever the money was exactly, NXT just going to USA, you could understand a draw. But it felt right for NXT to win outright. So you kind of sort of knew the winner coming out of this. Or coming into this match, excuse me. Becky didn't do too much towards the end. There was like some interesting spots here and there in the middle. And I really thought if this card should have been ordered differently. But then maybe you would have gotten some different winners at some points. I would have had the Women's Championship match have been in the middle of the show. Break up the championship. The back-to-back championship defenses with Adam Cole and Pete Dunne and The Fiend versus Bryan. Have it go Cole Dunne, Women's Triple Threat, Fiend Bryan. And maybe then it gets considered a bridge match, I know, but maybe just consider it like it's a very long bridge that's actually good and the crowd's invested in it. My issue with this match is the crowd, really. And the final booking, but still. This was a good match. I'll defend it. But the ending needed a lot, and I mean a lot of work. So, the ending saw Becky thrown over the announce table, which you kind of understand a bit. It was 18 minutes. Most matches don't go past 15. So, her kind of being knocked out of the rest of the match kind of made sense. Plus, I believe it was It was Corey or Beth Phoenix that pointed out that she hit like the side of the monitor, so that kind of could have made sense in a storytelling standpoint. And then Baszler got the Kirifuda clutch on Bayley, and Bayley tapped out. There were two other ways I would have booked this. If this had been in a different spot in the card, Bayley wins the match. But in this main event, I would have preferred Bayley passing out. Going into this match, the only person with anything to gain in the match was Bayley. Becky wouldn't have gained anything from winning. Baszler gained nothing from winning. Well, maybe now Baszler gained momentum back from losing the night before, but still, they didn't gain much. Bayley, a still relatively new heel, Bayley, could have benefited a lot more from a win. That's like the only real complaint I had with the match. The rest of it was pretty solid. There were some like little sloppy points here and there, but overall this was good. And now, like I said, overall Survivor Series was good. But now here's what I'm kind of curious about. After the match, Becky attacked Baszler, and it was kind of the John Cena ending, where you send the crowd home happy with the good guy standing tall, but it's somebody who, in Cena's case, stood tall a lot, and the fans kind of didn't like it. But people still like Becky. I don't want them to go the Becky route, or the Cena route with Becky. But I think this is setting up something. I'm going to say this right now on this podcast. My official prediction for the Women's Royal Rumble match, your winner is going to be Shayna Baszler. Let me explain, and let me book this road to WrestleMania in these last 4 minutes. So, you have this Survivor Series match. Baszler wins after throwing Becky over the table and tapping out Bayley. She just beat 2 main roster stars. This would irk Becky because she technically didn't lose the match, but she doesn't get technically the quote-unquote winner's cut, considering if like these matches have pay cuts. Because like in UFC and in boxing, I believe, the winner gets paid a little bit more than the loser does. But, so say she doesn't get the bigger cut, so technically she lost the match, and she's not happy about that. So that's why she attacked Baszler. But there's more story here. There's more to go off of. Baszler has been NXT Women's Champion for over a year. She's going to end with like maybe nearly 400 days in this booking scenario. So say Baszler enters the Rumble at like 15 or something middle of the pack number. Because we haven't seen a woman go coast to coast yet. Asuka won from 25 off the top of my head. And Becky won from 29. After taking Lana's spot in that match. Yes, that's right. So, you have Baszler coming in like the middle of the packish, and she wins the match. She wants Becky. She calls out Becky Lynch the next night on Raw. You don't wait till the week before, the month before WrestleMania. She does it the next night. She calls out Becky Lynch. There's the Mania match, but Baszler's still the NXT Women's Champion. There's still at least one more TakeOver match for her to have. TakeOver Portland. Rhea Ripley. Those two have a good match back and forth. Baszler locks in the Kirifuda clutch. And right when it looks like Rhea's about to tap out, Becky's music hits. Becky comes out. Shayna lets go of the clutch, gets distracted. Ripley hits the Riptide and wins the NXT Women's Championship. Now, does this kind of take away from Ripley winning the title outright? Yes, kind of. But Becky doesn't get actually involved. And then that's when Baszler gets the call up, and we see this feud go until WrestleMania. That's how you book this. That is how I would book this, at least. So it wouldn't make sense to have Baszler lose the night before and then go to one of the quote-unquote main events, because if you win the Royal Rumble, you win a spot in a main event at WrestleMania. So this would be a main event. Would it be the match to go on last? At this point, I have no idea. Maybe. What are your other options? It would be Fiend versus whoever, which honestly might be a main event. And I swear to God, if it's a Roman, they're just booking themselves back into the same corner they were in when he first got his rise to the main event scene. But that's how I would book this feud, because I don't think we're done with the Becky versus Baszler story. That's all the time I got for this week. I went a little longer than I had wanted to, so I severely apologize. Thank you guys so much for listening. That's my thoughts on Survivor Series weekend. Overall, a great show. Two great shows, to be fair. Raw was good the next night, too. NXT was decent. So was AEW Dynamite, from what I heard. I didn't watch. I had stuff to do. I didn't get off work till like 8 o'clock anyway. But that's it. Thank you guys, like I said already, so much for listening. If you want to, you can follow myself on Twitter at JeroSolider. You can follow this podcast at Podcast Armchair. You can follow All Things Combat on Twitter at Things Combat, which is a website I write for. We cover professional wrestling, boxing, and MMA. We are starting our end-of-year lists. We are going to be very busy in the month of December. We at first had 22 articles in 22 days. I think we're up to almost 30 in 22 days. There's going to be a lot of writing. I have one of my end-of-year lists done. I have 6 left to go. So, guess what I'm doing tonight? Yay! You can also buy our merch at the Spread Shop, link in the description. And I'm also the sports editor over at The Cauldron at Cleveland State, and you can follow us on Twitter at CSU Cauldron. We have one more issue coming out this semester. I have 3 articles in it. I have 0 done, so Courtney, if you're listening, I'm sorry. But that is that. Hit subscribe if you really like what you heard. If you just like what you heard, hit the like button. Leave a comment if you want. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'll be back next week with who knows what. I'll have to find some sort of topic to talk about. And hopefully it's under an hour, because I liked having those shorter little episodes. When I just get to talk about wrestling, it's fun, and I babble forever. Thank you guys so much for listening. My voice is very tired, very strained, very dry. I need more water. I will see you guys next week.